Hi everyone, my name is Juan from Just One Reader, and I have a confession to make, and my confession is as follows. 2016 has sucked in terms of reading, for me at least. Hopefully that's not the case for you, but personally 2016 has not been a good reading year for me. 2015, on the other hand, was really successful. I read over 80 books, I can't quite remember. I think I read like 90, 95 or something. So far, we are in March, the middle of March, I've read 9 books. That's like nothing. In my defense, I've been as busy as I've ever been. This is as busy as it gets. I have a bunch of work, I am studying, so I'm in school. The amount of work that I'm doing and schoolwork that I have to do is crazy. Actually, I kind of congratulate myself for reading it all because it's just really crazy. So, well, at least I've read. And I've quite enjoyed what I've read. So it's really unrealistic for me to do like wrap-ups, like monthly wrap-ups on a strict basis because like last month I think I read like 2 books or 3 books, so there's no point in that. There's just no point. So instead of doing that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy some booktubers who do recent reads videos, and what they do is they just talk about the latest books they read and briefly talk about them, comment. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the year, January, and in this video I'm gonna go and wrap up January, February, and March. So I've read a total of 9 books, and I'm gonna tell you all about those 9 books, and then at the end I'm gonna tell you about the book that I'm currently reading right now. So the first book I read was one of my favorite books of the year so far, and that was I Captured the Castle by Dodie Smith. I did a full review on this one, explaining everything that crossed my mind about this book. I loved it. It was a wonderful start to the year, and I just have the best memories from reading this book. Absolutely loved it. I think I gave it like 4.25. And yeah, you can go check my review if this sounds interesting. Then after that, I got super obsessed with the BBC series Sherlock, so I picked up the first book in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I got this beautiful editions, which is the complete Sherlock Holmes, the complete and annotated Sherlock Holmes. This edition is annotated by Leslie S. Klinger, who is quite the scholar when it comes to Sherlockian matters, and I loved the edition. The editions are just wonderful. If you want to read Sherlock Holmes, these are the editions that you need to read. This is the way to go when it comes to Mr. Holmes. Now, I read the first novel of Sherlock Holmes, which is called Studying Scarlett. I gave it 3 stars. I liked it. I really liked the beginning. I loved the characters. Sherlock Holmes is hands down becoming one of my favorite characters, and I've only read 1 book so far. I loved him. I also liked his sidekick a lot. I completely forgot his name now. Watson. I also love Watson. But the story itself, the plot of that particular novel was not that good. It kind of disappointed. There was just a lot of cheating from Arthur Conan Doyle. There's a part that I won't spoil for you, but there's a part in this novel, Study Scarlett, where everything feels like trickery, and I just didn't like that. But as far as character development, I really liked it, and I'm really looking forward to continuing on with the Sherlockian canon, because it's amazing, really. So I gave it 3 stars. Then I read a book on my Kindle, which is The Price of Salt by Patricia Highsmith. This book inspired the movie Carol, which I never even saw because they took it off movie theaters way too quickly. But I'm kind of torn with this book because the writing was solid. I liked the writing. The characters, the beginning, where, if not enjoyable, they were at least interesting in terms of how they were, how their lives were examined, and the protagonist's life was examined in quite an interesting way. But then it was just very boring. I didn't like the story itself. I didn't like the romantic or controversial side of this book at all. I just found it very boring, kind of dull. I never rooted for them. I was never really interested. So in the end, I gave it 3 stars because the beginning was good, the middle was meh, and the ending I just didn't really care about. After that, I read Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. I had no clue what this book was about. I haven't watched the movie. I had no idea what the movie was about. And I really enjoyed this. This was exactly what I needed when I read it. It was just the right pick at the right moment. It's a very thrilling book, super easy to read. I read it in like maybe a day and a half. It was just what I needed to get out of a reading slump. It was just very fun, very dark, quite funny. It was very predictable. Like, I had no idea what it was about, but once it started, I could clearly see what was going on. It was really funny. Nothing like super interesting, or it's not the type of book that left me personally with anything huge or, something wonderful when I finished it, but I really did enjoy the ride, and it got me interested and back in the wagon. So I gave it 3 stars because it was quite good and it served its purpose. After that, I picked probably my favorite book of the year so far, and that is The Enchanted by Renee Denfeld. This book was just, it was just inexplicable, undescribable. It was beautiful, it was heartfelt, it was touching, it was horrifying, it was beautiful and poetic. I also have a full review on this one. I strongly suggest you check it out in case you are interested in this book. It was just beautiful, very short, very accessible, super powerful, and very affecting. So, loved that one. Then I read The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake by Amy Bender. This is a book that was very highly praised by many booktubers whom I love and trust, such as Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings. And this book is kind of difficult for me to talk about. On the one hand, I can really appreciate it. I can really see what it's worth. The writing is very weird, but very beautiful. It's not my type of book at all. It is quite slow. It's very character driven, but not in the way that I like, and not in the way that I'm used to character driven books to be. There's very little plot. It's more of a family dynamic examination. It contains elements of magical realism that are very curious and quite interesting. I did like it quite a lot. I think in the end I gave it like 3.5 out of 5. It was good, fast, solid, beautiful, and it really left me thinking. I loved the ending. I really liked this book, actually, now that I think of it. I think I like it more than I think I do. But it was just, maybe I just had such high expectations that it didn't quite, but very good. After that, I read a book that again took me out of a kind of a reading slump, and that was Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. This was a very light, quick, fast trip into young adult literature, which, last year I read a lot of young adult literature and I really enjoyed it, but then at the end of the year I realized that even though I had really enjoyed it, I hadn't really been affected by it, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to cut down on reading YA this year. But I read this one and I really enjoyed it. It was nothing super, super special, but it was fine. It reminded me a lot of John Green and David Levithan's Will Grayson, which to me is better, but whatever. I really enjoyed this. It was just warm, light. Yeah, I think I gave it 4 stars because it got me really interested in reading again. And then the last books, 8 and 9 respectively, were the first 2 installments in a series of unfortunate events by Daniel Handler, aka Lemony Snicket. The first one, of course, is The Bad Beginning, and the second one, The Reptile Room. I read a series of unfortunate events probably about 15 years ago. They were the first books I ever read, even before Harry Potter, because Harry Potter was not even a thing here in Mexico. So these were popular before Harry Potter. And I remember I was just obsessed with these books when I was growing up. I just devoured them, and I couldn't have enough of them. So I decided to pick them back up again. I'm probably gonna read the entire series. I don't know. So I read the first 2. I read them both in 2 days this weekend, pretty much. They're just hilarious. They are very well written for, considering the type of literature that it is. They are really well written. I love the characters. I love how the plots are thought out. And I'm really excited to continue on and revisiting the rest of the series. And I'm probably going to make a video, when I'm finished with the series, I'm going to make a video on revisiting a series of unfortunate events, because I think it's really interesting to see what happens when you revisit certain things from your childhood when you're an adult. Like, back in December, I reread Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I made a video on revisiting Harry Potter as an adult, because I think the experience that you get is similar but very different at the same time, and it's really interesting and worth talking about, I think. So those are the 9 books that I have read so far, and the book that I'm currently reading right now is Room by Emma Donoghue. Of course, this is the book that inspired the Oscar-winning movie. Well, is it an Oscar-winning movie? She won Best Actress, so I guess it counts like an Oscar-winning movie, right? So Room was a movie that I saw. It deeply affected me. I watched it several times, and I picked up the book because I have decided to write my dissertation paper for, well, that's another topic, but I'm writing a paper on Room, both the book and the movie and psychoanalysis. So I'm reading it, I'm researching it, I'm analyzing it word by word almost, and I'm finding it quite similar to the movie so far. I think that works out fine since Emma Donoghue is the person who also wrote the screenplay, so that's quite convenient. So I think this is a wonderful story. You should see the movie in case you haven't, or read the book. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll record my next video whenever I read anything, because, it feels like I'm not even reading, but I swear I'm gonna try and keep it up. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you when I see you.